case you haven't noticed, we are doing this season by arc. And tonight will be the last episode for our first arc. The first arc was meant to be a start to guide you, and now we're near the lighthouse. I'm so happy. It's already the fourth episode. Time flies, I think, when we're having fun. I know that some of us are going through something more heavier tonight, but hey, you know what? We are back. This is episode 4, and today I attended my first Philippine Independence Day celebration outside of the Philippines, and there were so many thoughts in my brain while I was there sitting. But I went home early because, I want to play a Dota game, and of course, I want to record this. And yes, if you're wondering, I do record on a Sunday, and I clean everything on a Sunday and upload everything on a Sunday. Now, I wasn't able to finish my Filipiniana Bolero, but I was able to finish another crochet project, and I paired it with the glorious skirt from Quite Frankie Studio. And no, this is not paid advertisement, but really those skirts have ROI'd, and I am so happy that I got them when I wanted to get them. And I say them because I have two of those skirts. And if you want to check them out, you can look for LILITHSTR on Instagram. So you can see I will post how they look on me. They were really amazing. Oh, by the way, I was able to pull off a very dark green and burgundy or bluish red kind of color. I didn't look like a Christmas tree, so I am so happy. On top of that, we have another major digital milestone to celebrate. I finally got my Apple account back, so we are back on Apple Podcasts. I am really, really happy. So, for the first episode, what I am going to attach as a link will be the link to our Apple Podcast. If you're wondering where else you can find me in the audio verse, just leave a comment. I would be happy to share with you where I am on the audio verse. So we're on Spotify, back in Apple. There's no more Google Podcast anymore, but we are on YouTube Studio or Music, sorry, YouTube Music. And we are also on Amazon Music and some other places. I can list them out for you. Just let me know if you want to know where else to find me on our little audio verse. Okay, now, after all of those life updates, um, I just really want to ask. This is our fourth episode, stranger. How are you doing? How was your week? How was your month? Were you able to survive the fallout of the last episode? It's necessary for us to dismantle, if you may, the foundations that we have for all of these logical things. And I, for one, should know that because my brain works logically. And one of my bosses actually told me that I'm more pragmatic than anything else. So take that as you will. But I know how necessary it is to build something up and then dismantle it so that we can get to the raw feeling, raw emotion, and we can do your raw acceptance. Now, if you've been tracking with us over our previous midnight sessions, we've stripped down a massive amount of heavy armor. Yes, we drew sovereign circles on blank pages to lay out boundaries. And last week, we officially fired ourselves from being the hyper vigilant directors of our own emotional breakdown, or project managers, that is. We decided to stand raw center stage, leave the script behind, and let things suck for a while. If you don't do that, if you try to look for something that would accelerate your feelings, it's really not going to work and it's going to hurt more. You're just delaying the healing that should be happening right now. But as I was sitting here in the dark, looping this yarn, I realized a deeply annoying truth. Even when you stop trying to force the scene, your chest can still feel entirely compressed. the panic still lingers, and it's because of a very specific, completely invisible kind of gravity pulling at your floorboards, the weight of expectations. Let's talk about it tonight. My name is Lee, and this is The Midnight Affair. Ah, yes. The conversation that we do not want to have when we would be looking at the mirror and talking about expectations. We have them before the relationship, we have them while we are in the relationship, and we have them after the relationship. And I have actually proven that to be real after after my very messy separation with ex-husband. But here we are talking about it. We need to look into these unreleased scripts we've been trapped in. Because when a relationship cracks, our minds turn into a late night independent theater running a continuous heavy triple feature we never wanted to buy tickets for. We are haunted by our ghost memories, which are really just the movies we keep replaying in our heads. It's the unreleased footage of a future you pre wrote. Yes, that's right, you pre wrote. The milestones you didn't reach and the scenes that really stubbornly refused to air. We carry the weight of borrowed scripts from movies, friends, society, and even ourselves, forcing our production to hit rigid timelines at 25, you should have a career, 30, you should have a husband, by 40, you should have kids and a house. And because it hurts to watch our expectations fail, we try to use cheap special effects and trendy production hacks to rewrite our grief. We hide behind well, I would say these are three major emotional smoke screens, but truly these are just the things that I've watched on YouTube and on, I don't do TikTok, but things that I've been seeing on Reels, YouTube, Shorts, Instagram, and Facebook. Smokescreen number one, the quick fix deromantization checklist. Now, I've seen this a couple of times circulating the internet. This is that viral trend, the 6 questions to shatter your idealization. In one of those reels, I saw a lot of comments that really made sense to me. And we can talk about why those comments made sense. The internet presents this as the ultimate inverse spin on the famous 32 questions to fall in love. But let's clarify how those original 32 questions actually work. They're not magic. No, they're not going to make you automatically fall in love with a person. If anything, it would actually kind of slow down the process because it is a systematic approach to accelerate or to help build mutual vulnerability and empathy, tickling the chemical juices in your brain to jumpstart raw attraction. Now, this viral 6 question trend is not a true flip of that intimacy. It is a cynical, defensive rewrite. It tricks you into believing you've optimized the breakup by reducing a complex human being to a cold checklist of red flags. By treating it like a quick fix formula, you are refusing to acknowledge that you genuinely felt a deep connection, convincing yourself of a revisionist script because the true history is too heavy to hold. Oh, to be fair, I love listening to Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell, but it has nothing to do with this. Smokescreen number two, the no contact game of strategy. Yes, I will call it a game because that's how we treat it. This is where we look at the no contact rule. Now, let's be entirely accurate here. It absolutely does take 21 days to build a habit. The science behind that timeline is completely real. And if you're using this intentional period of silence to actively build a brand new pathway in your brain, giving your nervous system the quiet space it needs to untangle from the old architecture, That is incredibly good. However, most of us do not do that. Instead of this beautiful self preservation, we use it as a game. The smoke screen only happens when your underlying motivation shifts into a competitive game of strategy. When you enforce no contact simply because you want to win the breakup or force a specific reaction out of the other person. Look at what that competitive mindset is actually doing to your brain. If you are staring at your phone at 3 a.m., forcing your compliance just to score points on an imaginary leaderboard, you are not building a healthy habit. You are hyper focused on the antagonist. Your brain is trapped in an addictive scanning loop, treating their absence like an executive producer running your entire night by a remote control. Smokescreen number three, the performative trailer. This is the glossy public rebrand. We've all done this because at some points in our lives, this is what makes sense. We hit the gym or we start exercising, updating the wardrobe, posting curated photos of artisan lattes, or we travel and travel to different places, new coastline, and meet new people. Now, let me be entirely clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing any of these things. The action themselves are fine. The danger lies in the reasons why we are doing them. What is the true motivation? Is it just a temporary distraction to keep from sitting with our own skin? Are we trying to cut a high budget promotional trailer just to get back at the ex and prove how well we are doing? You need to edit your life and heal simply because you want to heal, not because you want to show them you are thriving. Are you really thriving? You have to do it for your own reflection and not to win a non existent competition. Because here is the ultimate plot twist, stranger. There's no leaderboard. That's the truth. There's no prize. This isn't even a game. Those trends look exactly like recovery, but they are just clever editing tricks. They force you to sit indefinitely in the editing bay, replaying the same scenes to keep scores. Every time you count the days or audit your anger, you are still letting them dominate the screen. Have you ever wondered why don't those editing tricks work, stranger? Well, because love isn't just a conceptual storyline you can easily cut from your memory. Expecting your mind to instantly clear the screen after a deep attachment isn't just unrealistic, it's an unkindness to your own biology. When you love a person, truly and deeply, it physically alters your neurobiology. Love floods your system like a massive cocktail of chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. And we've talked about it in a lot of different episodes. They literally rewire your neural pathways. Your brain constructs physical synaptic highways dedicated entirely to that person and to that experience with that person and to that relationship. It builds permanent neural architecture around their voice, their habits, and their presence. Also, your traditions, the things that you do together, and anything in between that person and your relationship. When the production ends, those physical neural pathways do not just instantly vanish. Your brain still defaults to those established highways because they are deeply carved into your mind. That is why you feel a physical ache in your chest. Your neural system is experiencing a literal layout disruption. You cannot analyze your way out of a physical highway restructurings. Believe me, I've tried. And this, stranger, is exactly where we must turn off the projector and introduce a completely different kind of force: grace. I'm not talking about grace in a religious sense. However, if that's how you would understand grace, by all means, please do so. I am talking about grace as a profound human experience. Grace is the unearned suspension of judgment against your own reflection. It is the radical act of walking out of the editing day entirely. To receive grace means realizing you do not owe the past a perfect performance. You do not owe the world a flawless timeline. To experience grace means looking back at that frantic late night overthinking, the desperate rules that you built, and the absolute historical disaster of our previous choices, and choosing to forgive ourselves for simply being humans in the dark. Now, if you play our first two episodes back to back tonight, it might look like I am completely arguing with myself, and maybe I am. You might think, hey, Lee, you've completely changed your mind. In the beginning, I stood on a podium of certainty and gave you rigid definitions, neat little circles, and strict boundaries to build a fortress around your pride. That was really the trainer in me. I told you to map what belongs to you and what belongs to the other person. But if we are completely being unedited tonight, those patterns and protective walls were just the emergency scaffolding, the temporary set design, if you will. We absolutely needed them so we didn't collapse flat on our faces when the house lights initially went down. Those were first aids. The true emotional effort isn't spending the rest of our lives living inside a temporary set. Moving from those rigid rules to true unedited acceptance is where we finally discover what grace means in a human sense. Healing doesn't happen when you perfectly manage the data. It happens when you finally submit to the absolute acceptance of your own messy, beautiful reality. Let me tell you about the exact moment my own defensive set completely collapsed. So, 2 years back, I was heading home after spending an incredible block of time with my special person in Italy. Before I left, I remembered my friend Isa, with me at work, looked at me and said, and we were in the pantry when she said this: Lee, you are going to cry when it's time to go home. I looked at her completely blank, and then I gave her a coy smile because I was so fiercely armored in my own logic. I told her, I don't think so. I mean, I know that I'm going home anyway. Why would I cry? Plus, I thought I was still very confused about what I felt at that time. I kept telling myself that I was just confused about how I felt about him, confused about the relationship, confused about the distance. I was using confusion as an editing trick to protect my heart from the gravity of what was going to happen. But truth be told, I really felt like I wouldn't cry. Then we were there at the Bologna station, at Bologna Centrale, just waiting on the platform for the train to Milan because I was going home. I turned and looked at him, and the entire production just shattered. I just didn't tear up. I started absolutely bawling right there at the station, and people were looking at us. I was already grieving the thought of leaving him, already missing him desperately, even though he was still there, seated right beside me. There were no defense mechanisms left, no clever dialogues, no plot twists. I knew that I was just sad, nothing else. It was a complete, pure, unedited feeling of sadness. There wasn't anything else there. And it made me realize how useless our societal scripts are. People look at long distance relationships and ask the same predictable questions. Aren't you worried about him meeting other girls or women? Aren't you panic about him flirting? Honestly, and I'm gonna answer this once and for all, no, that doesn't concern me at all. I'm far more worried about his physical safety in the world, really, because he's just so hard headed and refuses to wear anything that can protect him from dust or from insect bites or anything like that. Now ask me why. It has something to do with the job that he does. When he hugged me at Milan Centrale on the very first day we saw each other, and when he hugged me again at Bologna Centrale when it was time to go home, it didn't feel like a movie scene. It didn't feel like butterflies fluttering in my stomach. It felt like home. My brain completely bypassed the script, and I just knew I was home. I wasn't actually confused all those months. I was just terrified. And right there on that train platform, I stopped trying to rewrite the scene. I gave myself the grace to stop fighting, and I accepted what I had known deep down all along. I'm home. When we allow that human grace to soften our perimeters, it completely changes how we look into the naked mirror. All the past relationships, with all their messy margins, their distance, and their turbulence, were the exact places where I learned and really learned what I don't like, what I can tolerate, and what I absolutely love. That's when I stopped forcing unwritten societal templates onto my identity and started actually seeing the real person and the real relationship. And seeing the real story does not evolve around that. I'm not talking about making cheap, spineless excuses for the excess red flags. We're not doing that here. Looking into the mirror without judgment allows you to understand where you mirrored them and where you did not. You see your own reflections, your own boundaries, and your own communication gaps clearly for the first time. I know it sounds cliche, but now I guess I'm understanding why Narcissus was so in love with himself. Because of that clarity, I am a significantly better partner in my relationship now. It made me understand exactly what works for me. And grace ensures this doesn't become a demanding or self serving negotiation. Because I finally know what works for me. I learned how to clearly communicate that to the world, and in turn, I learned how to stand still, hold space, and ask my partner exactly what works for him. A relationship ceases to be a desperate purpose of existence or a societal script to follow. It becomes a really big plus in life. We have so much more freedom now. Why can't we love the ones who we just want to love? I get you. It's really hard to forget somebody you love, but also loving them from a distance is still love. The thing is, you don't have to end up with the person who you love. You can allow yourself to love again because you can. This is where grace must apply to how we cast people in our minds. There is absolutely no need to vilify them. Most stories don't end because one person is an all powerful, monstrous antagonist. The messy truth is that a typical relationship ends with both parties getting hurt, whether they want to admit it or not. It's a shared wreck. Vilifying the other person doesn't cleanse your system, it just brings about entirely unnecessary hurt. Even worse, it leads to your own emotional self destruction because the second you give them the top billing part of a villain, you trap yourself in a mindset where you feel completely victimized. You trade your sovereignty for a victim card, leaving yourself powerless on your own stage. But also, on the other hand, a flip side to the vilification loop is putting them on a pedestal. Some people in our lives were a hero to us at some point. Maybe they really did save us from something dark or from a version of ourselves we couldn't handle alone. It is completely fine if you have built a statue of them in your mind. I would say be grateful for the time that you had with them. Through the lens of grace, you have to let it be just that, a statue. Let it be a quiet and moving reminder that in time, someone held the door open for you just so you could see how wonderful life is with love. Wish them well, and then just let the statue be a statue. The point is, stop giving them lead roles in your active chapters. Maybe at some point of your life, in some other chapters, they were, but now slowly put them in the background as an extra. A background extra doesn't get a close up, they don't get a dramatic monologue or a cinematic song block. A background extra is just a face in the crowd of a scene you shot years ago. You acknowledge they were in the frame. You look at that memory with a dry, self deprecating laugh, and then you let the camera pan away because the rest of the film belongs entirely to you. As we bring this final episode of the Star Arc to a close, look down at the unwritten scripts you've been carrying. Whatever decisions we've made in the past, whatever actions we've executed, whether they were good or bad, they affected exactly where we are tonight. All of those choices, all of those thoughts, all of those wants and needs, and all of those frantic dreams, they all led us to this exact room. Sometimes it sounds deeply unfair because the societal timeline says you should be further along or in a much better place. But society doesn't know what you're going through. You're the only person who knows what you're going through. And the truth of the matter is, we are exactly where we need to be. We cannot fix our pasts with bitter checklists, strategic silences, or performative previews. We aren't going to stay trapped in the editing bay with our history anymore. Tonight, we wrap this entire production in grace. Let's turn off the projector tonight. Let's tear up the silent, impossible scripts we held against our own reflections. When we finally extend that unearned kindness to our soul, the phantom gravity lifts. The screen goes dark. The final cut is locked, and the entire ticket is paid in full. Perform a script audit on your night, stranger. Give yourself the unyielding permission to change your mind. Let the healing happen clumsily in the dark and step center stage on your own stage. You still feel broken. It will take a long time to actually be a whole circle, but we will all get there. This officially concludes our first journey together. Yes, we started in the pitch black of the open sea, but we're not left stranded. We followed our guiding star through the deepest parts of the night, and it has done its job perfectly. The star has guided us just far enough to see the lighthouse across the dark water, making us feel, for the first time in a very long time, that we are about to land. Over our next few midnight sessions, that lighthouse is going to take over, cutting through the heavy fog to guide us safely all the way back to the shore. And when we reach that final episode, stranger, we are going to step onto the land with our own 2 feet, feeling completely unshakably grounded. In case you want to share your story or you want to get featured, get interviewed, or just have a whole episode around your story, if that feels cathartic for you, please let me know. Send me an email at Lilith.di.stella@gmail.com. You can find that in our description. Just let me know, reach out. I'll be happy to write, to help you write. Not, I won't be writing it. I will be scripting it, but I will be happy to help you write that story if that is something that could help you get over what you're feelings right now and honor the kind of love that you have given away and the kind of love that you are ready to give yourself. This is the Midnight Affair. My name is Lee. Keep safe, sweet dreams. Good night, stranger.